You're listening to The J.D. Rucker Show. Objects in mirror may be closer than they appear.
So, today, we're not going to be talking about Jeffrey Epstein. The saga's not over. I know that a lot of people want to put it to bed. A lot of people that I like and respect in media, they want to put it to bed. They're like, hey, we got bigger fish to fry. We've got the D&I release by Tulsi Gabbard of all the incriminating evidence against Barack Obama and Susan Rice and James Clapper and James Comey and John Brennan and Samantha Power and Ben Rhodes and the Valerie Jarrett and the rogues gallery of bad guys who were going after first candidate Trump and then President Trump. Of course, Hillary Clinton is in that mix very squarely, very nicely. But behind it all, there is one organization that stands out. It's funny because last week, literally, it was either the day of or the day before the drop by D&I Gabbard. My wife and I were talking about it. We were talking about John Ratcliffe, okay? And we were talking about, or I was basically saying, I had high hopes for him, but I'm not sure he seems to be as not necessarily shady, but he seems to be as reluctant to talk about things as much as his predecessors, William Burns and Gina Haspel during the Trump administration. And I don't know if anything's going to come out. I don't know if he's going to release the stuff that we need released. And a phrase that I used, I said, I went in thinking that Ratcliffe was going to be President Trump's handler for the deep state. And then now, at least as of last week, I was thinking maybe John Ratcliffe is the deep state's handler of Trump. I thought that was very possible. Again, we haven't seen anything, And to be fair, the CIA is not exactly, so it's like, okay, well, on today's agenda, the CIA, we're going to be, they're spooks. They're supposed to work in the shadows. If they are coming out and talking about too much, that'd be like having an exterminator go to your restaurant during business hours, spraying around during while people are eating and everybody's like freaking out. It's like, what the heck? And it's like, laying mouse traps and stuff. It'd be like, whoa, I'm out of here, right? So you don't necessarily want the CIA to be very public, but you do need whoever's running the CIA, in this case, John Ratcliffe, you need him to be working on behalf of the United States, to be working to defend the Constitution, and very clearly to be working abroad, not here in the United States. We do not want the CIA operating here, okay? I mean, if they need some help, maybe some of the things that they're supposed to be doing are happening here in the United States, great, co-opt that. You got the NSA, you got the FBI, you got different ways to keep them out of America, not operating on U.S. soil or against American citizens. Okay, fair enough, right? Well, I was questioning it, and then literally it was either the next day or maybe even the day of is when this drop came, and I'm like, okay, maybe this is it. And I'm not letting Ratcliffe off the hook by any means. Okay, I do want to see massive reforms of the CIA. I want a huge spotlight shown on it. But this is encouraging because a lot of the information that's going through the DNI, the Department of, through Tulsi Gabbard specifically, her DNI, not just the DNI is still a broken entity in my humble opinion, but it's getting fixed thanks to Tulsi Gabbard, as Hillary Clinton would have said, the Russian asset. Tulsi Gabbard. She's very quickly proving herself to be one of the most reliable parts of the administration. She's consistent. She seems to be on point. And I did not have the highest hopes for her. I'll admit it. I didn't do anything I didn't like. Oh no, we got to get somebody else. It wasn't like that. It was more along the lines of, I've got a hard time dealing with former Democrats. Their ideology is still off a bit. Now, she is in some ways a non-interventionalist, so that part's good, but then she has some certain weird connections. I was just iffy. But she's quickly becoming one of my favorites. Hopefully she will become more people's favorite as, Lord willing, more information goes out about the the various escapades, and not just with Obama and Russiagate. Hopefully more information will be coming out from her on a regular basis. I mean, that's really what we want today. We as the American people, we need intelligence, right? We need our various spooks out there doing the things that they do. We might disagree with a lot of it, but a lot of it's appropriate. We'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to defend the CIA or the NSA in any way, shape, or form, but I will say that intermingled with all of the bad that they do, and it mostly is bad, there is the occasional good that comes out of it. We'll just leave it at that. I don't want to... I mean, if it were up to me... No, it's not up to me, so I'm not even going to speculate. So I did want to do an expose, and I started doing my research, and as whatever, fate or Providence or whatever would have it, one of my favorite YouTube channels, the Y-Files, and if you're not following them, they got like 5 million subscribers. You should be one of them if you have any interest at all in conspiracy theories. They do a very good job. AJ over there does a very good job. Not perfect, okay, but a very good job of talking about certain conspiracy theories, and his shtick is that he'll take it and he'll talk about a conspiracy theory for 20, 30, 40 minutes as if it's, okay, so these are the facts, this is what happened. And then he'll spend the last 5 or 10 minutes saying whether this is why it's debunked or this is why we can't debunk it. It's a fair show. I mean, it's a fair methodology, the way that he does it. I do get a little annoyed when it's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then after half an hour, it's like, okay, so actually none of that really happened. And here's why. It's like, son of a gun, couldn't you, why'd you, whatever. But anyway, it works. It's a very entertaining channel, that's for sure. But he hasn't done a whole lot when it comes to the CIA, and we find out why at the end of the episode. I mean, he basically declared that the CIA is one topic that he's always been hesitant to talk about. One of two topics. The other topic is the Clinton kill list for obvious reasons, and the CIA he doesn't like to talk about for very much the same reasons. But now he is branching out. He's going to be talking about the CIA a whole lot more. And he started this series. This is the first part of a series. I'm going to play it here. One quick note before I play it. It is talking about, well, you'll see. One quick note before I play it, though. He has a sponsor in the beginning, PDS. They're not our sponsor. They have no association with me. I left it in, okay, because look, he's gonna. I think his episode's like 30-something minutes. So his content is going to be the lion's share of today's show. And it's just fair to allow, if I'm going to be using his content, I should allow his sponsor to be listed there. So just, we here at Patriot TV, we have no affiliation with his sponsor, but I left it in because fair's fair, So yeah, if you want to work with his sponsor, awesome. That doesn't help us, but it doesn't hurt us either. So we don't have any competing sponsors with that. We do have, though, for those of you who are interested, we do have a tremendous, the best, what I consider to be by far the best long-term storage food sponsor with Heaven's Harvest. Their food, which you can find by going to patriot.tv/food, patriot.tv/food. Use promo code PATRIOT at checkout for a discount. But Heaven's Harvest, their food is absolutely fantastic. And I'm not just saying that. This is somebody I have taste tested pretty much all of them, all the major brands, and a lot of the minor brands in the prepper food world, because my first experience with prepper food was awful. Okay, this is back in right around Obamacare days. And we got a couple of buckets of food, and I had to crack it open and try it. And it's like, holy crap! Just if the apocalypse comes during our lifetime, just kill me. Okay, we're just gonna go. We're gonna go live off the land and eat berries and bark and deer if there's still deer around for me to hunt. That's it. We're not gonna eat this crap. I started trying some others just in case, and some were good, some were okay, some were bad. One in particular was really good. They're not a sponsor, so I'm not going to talk about them. But equally good, if not better, is Heaven's Harvest. Go to patriot.tv/food and use promo code PATRIOT. and get you some long-term storage food that's actually, this is the kind of food that you can picture. I know I can picture eating it every day if there's a long-term blackout, if there's another pandemic and we're locked in our homes for days or weeks or months or years. If there is something cataclysmic that happens, God forbid, here in the United States, you will want to have your own food security. You don't want to be reliant on FEMA or whoever to try to put you in a bread line and feed you cricket burgers, a cricket line, as we like to call it. So check them out. Heaven's Harvest, patriot.tv/food. Use promo code Patriot. So without further ado, here is AJ from the Y-Files.
This episode of the Y-Files is brought to you by PDS Debt. On June 25, 2007, the CIA quietly released 693 pages of their darkest secrets to the website. No announcement, no press conference, just a document dump of operations so illegal they've been hidden since 1973. The CIA called this collection their family jewels. Assassination plots, mind control experiments, journalists on CIA payroll, surveillance of hundreds of thousands of Americans who'd committed no crimes. These weren't conspiracy theories. These were real. Each page of the family jewels revealed operations approved at the highest levels, operations that violated every law meant to constrain the CIA. And taken together, they revealed something darker than isolated crimes. They told a story. The story of the family jewels is the story of the real CIA.
Human, thank goodness. It's an emergency. I need your CHOAM credentials stat.
CHOAM credentials?
Just for a few hours. Long enough to shuffle a little spice through a dummy sitch.
Wait, where in the world are you? And what's going on with your eyes?
The world is spice. The spice is the world.
Spice? Like paprika or cardamom?
No, you bonehead. I'm on Arrakis mining spice melange.
You're on planet Arrakis? How did you even get—
Listen, human, I'll make it short. I lost a big bet on a bullfight down in Caladan. Now I owe the Harkonnens a whole lot of Solari, or they're gonna turn my Gertie into the Baron's next science fair project.
Well, have you tried selling your bowl water? I hear that's a growth market on Arrakis.
I've tried, but no one wants it. My still suit is still a little, let's just say it's triple distilled.
Well, I thought spice lets you see the future. Can't you see your hangover yet?
Oh, quite a comedian you are. I hired a mentat to manage the books. Turns out he was just a guy with a calculator and no idea what compound interest is. Human, I need help.
Why don't you just use PDS Debt?
Oh, did you just ride a sandworm straight into today's sponsor?
You bet your bowl of vodka I did. It starts with one missed bill, then another. Suddenly your mailbox is full of final notices. Debt collectors want your car, your home, your paycheck, your peace. Debt doesn't wait. It destroys. But there's a way out. PDS Debt has helped hundreds of thousands escape before it was too late. They go beyond the numbers to understand your situation and create a personalized plan. And there's no minimum credit score required. PDS Debt is here to help you save more, pay off debt faster, and start putting money back in your pocket. They're A+ rated by the BBB and have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot. Proof that PDS Debt is a trusted solution for people who need real help. Look, we've all been there. Debt is overwhelming. The interest piles up and you feel stuck. If you're dealing with credit card debt, personal loans, medical bills, or collections, don't wait. You're 30 seconds away from being debt-free. Get your free assessment and find the best solution option for you right now at pdsdebt.com/files. That's pdsdebt.com/files.
pdsdebt.com/files.
You got it. What was that?
The worms.
The worms?
They feel the vibrations. I've been clapping off rhythm to confuse them. It works on Fremen, too.
Or they're just laughing at you.
If I don't make it, tell the Baron he can take the moon of G80 Prime and shove it right up his...
Guess he found Shai Hulud the hard way. The story of the family jewels didn't start in 2007. It starts in 1973, when the walls started closing in on the CIA. On May 9th, James Schlesinger had been CIA director for only 3 months, and his timing couldn't have been worse. The Watergate break-in scandal was spreading. The 5 intruders were all connected to the CIA, some as officers, some as assets. The planners of the break-in were E. Howard Hunt and G. Gordon Liddy. Hunt was former CIA. Liddy was former FBI with a background in intelligence. Congress and the press were asking questions the CIA didn't want to answer. But the director had a problem. He didn't know what his own agency had done. He knew there were secrets buried that could destroy them if ever discovered, so he issued an order to every department head. Report any activity that may have violated the CIA's charter. This was supposed to be a routine investigation, a way to get the agency out of the headlines. The rumors were bad. He had no idea that the truth was much worse. One department admitted to opening mail between the US and Soviet Union. 28 million letters over 20 years were illegally opened and scanned. The Office of Security confessed to wiretapping American journalists who'd been asking too many questions. Every department submitted reports. Every report was worse than the last. There were disclosures of surveillance operations, not against foreign spies, against Americans. Anyone who questioned authority was a CIA target. Some programs were classified secret, then top secret. But operations classified eyes only were so secret, details couldn't be written down. They were labeled sensitive operation, details available orally only. Others had code names that revealed nothing. MH Chaos, HT Lingual, MK Often. Week after week, the secrets poured in. Programs everyone thought were conspiracy theories. The binder was getting heavy. By summer, it was several inches thick, almost 700 pages of CIA misconduct. But these weren't occasional mistakes. They were approved, funded, and executed. In other words, decades of illegal CIA operation was official policy. This was a report that could destroy the agency. And then it leaked. Not from a spy, but from a journalist who believed in transparency. But he had no idea he was about to expose the biggest intelligence scandal in American history. And as soon as the CIA caught wind of his investigation, he became the agency's biggest threat and newest target. The journalist who would expose it all was no stranger to government lies. Seymour Hersh had already won a Pulitzer Prize in 1969 for exposing the My Lai massacre, where American soldiers slaughtered hundreds of Vietnamese civilians. The Pentagon tried to bury that story. Hersh dragged it into the light. By December 1974, Hersh was at the New York Times, and he'd been hearing whispers from former CIA officers about domestic surveillance programs that weren't supposed to exist. The CIA's charter was crystal clear. No domestic operations, no spying on American citizens, period. But his sources were telling him the opposite, that the CIA was running a massive operation against Americans. On December 22, 1974, the Times ran Hersh's story on the front page. The article detailed a massive intelligence operation with files on 10,000 American citizens, not foreign agents, not terrorists, Americans, anti-war activists, civil rights leaders, journalists, even members of Congress. The backlash was instant. The public was outraged, and the press wouldn't let it go. The next morning, the Department of Justice announced an investigation, and CIA Director William Colby was summoned to Air Force One to brief President Ford personally. President Ford's solution was damage control, control the narrative. Vice President Nelson Rockefeller would lead a commission to investigate. Quick, clean, controlled. The scandal would finally be contained. But it backfired. The commission not only confirmed everything Hersh reported, they found more. The CIA had conducted break-ins against American citizens, bugged their homes, opened their mail, tapped their phones, even tested biological weapons on Americans without their knowledge. The agency wasn't just violating its charter, it was breaking the law, and every target was an American citizen on American soil.
The agency does monitor foreign communications.
How do you define foreign communications?
I think it is communications that go abroad or are abroad. I think
Does it involve a United States citizen at one end?
On some occasions, that cannot be separated from the traffic that is being monitored, I believe.
These operations weren't the work of rogue agents. They were approved at the highest levels by CIA directors, by the Pentagon, by former presidents, and vice presidents.
It turned out that most of these abuses really could be trailed back to the president and the NSC. They initiated them, they knew about them. In some cases, for example, assassinations, Eisenhower was the first to suggest it. And so this was really not a rogue rogue agency. This was, in some respects, a rogue presidency.
Congress knew they needed their own investigation. Senator Frank Church was chosen to lead what would become the most extensive investigation of intelligence activities ever conducted. And the Church Committee had something the President's Commission didn't: subpoena power, the power to force anyone involved to testify. No hiding behind national security. No, I can neither confirm nor deny. Tell the truth or go to jail. For the first time in history, the CIA would have to reveal their covert operations under oath and on the record. And what they revealed shocked everyone, because any American could be a target. And as the investigation continued, that list of American targets kept getting longer and longer. The Church Committee's first major discovery was Operation Chaos, known by its cryptonym MH Chaos. Started in 1967 under President Johnson and expanded under Nixon. The mission was simple: find foreign influence in the anti-war movement, prove that Moscow or Beijing were behind the protests. They never found any foreign influence, not one case. The anti-war movement was made up of Americans, but they kept looking for communists, and the program kept growing. By 1973, Chaos had indexed 300,000 Americans in its computer system. Not suspected spies, not foreign agents, Americans exercising their First Amendment rights. College students, clergy, professors, journalists. Anyone who questioned the Vietnam War was a potential target. Richard Ober ran the operation. He worked under James Jesus Angleton, the CIA's counterintelligence chief. Angleton had built his own empire within the CIA. He was brilliant, paranoid, and convinced that enemies were everywhere. The CIA was designed to protect America from foreign threats, but Angleton had turned those weapons inward against his own citizens. They used a sophisticated computer system to track everyone. It cross-referenced every name mentioned in every intelligence report. Feed in one name, get connections to dozens more, like a spider web expanding outward. 7,200 Americans had dedicated files. Their mail was opened and their phones were tapped without a warrant. Their trash was searched. CIA agents infiltrated their organizations, attended their meetings, recorded their conversations.
The documents describe domestic spying, opening of private mail, and the investigation of journalists. Agents watched former Washington Post reporter Michael Gettler for 3 months in 1971.
They were watching who I was talking to. They took pictures of who I was having lunch with. They actually took pictures through the picture window of our home.
CIA employees have nicknamed the documents the family jewels.
Over 1,000 organizations were monitored, not just protest groups. The CIA watched Jewish organizations. The Israeli embassy was watched. When asked why, one CIA officer said they were looking for radical Jewish elements. American Jews practicing their faith, supporting Israel, were watched by their own government. And Chaos wasn't alone. Merrimack infiltrated protest groups around Washington, D.C. Operation Resistance collected information on draft resistors. HT Lingual, an earlier operation, was still running, and that was opening and photographing mail between Americans and foreign countries. The CIA didn't just target protesters, it also watched members of Congress. Bella Abzug from New York, Patsy Mink from Hawaii. A total of 14 members of Congress were on the CIA's watch list for being vocal critics of the Vietnam War. The violations were systemic. Every person who spoke out against the war, every group that organized a protest, every publication that questioned policy, all of them ended up in the computer system. Names, addresses, associates, activities, everything cataloged and cross-referenced. They turned spying into a science. But sometimes watching isn't enough. Sometimes they needed boots on the ground. Sometimes direct action had to be used against American citizens. The CIA needed an agency willing to get their hands dirty, and they found the perfect partner, the FBI. When it came to crushing Americans' First Amendment rights, the CIA and the FBI were perfect partners. The CIA surveilled dissent, and the FBI dismantled it. The program was called COINTELPRO, short for Counterintelligence Program. Officially, it targeted domestic subversives. Unofficially, it was a war on the First Amendment. Civil rights leaders were tracked. Activists were harassed. Some were imprisoned. Some were killed. One of the FBI's favorite targets was Martin Luther King Jr. J. Edgar Hoover had been watching Dr. King since December 1955. The Montgomery bus boycott had just started. The young minister was making headlines. Hoover ordered surveillance, and that surveillance would continue for the next 12 years, right up until Dr. King was assassinated in Memphis. And the FBI didn't just tap his phones. They bugged his home, his offices, every hotel room he stayed in. They had agents follow him 24 hours a day. They knew where he was every minute, who he talked to, what he said. They recorded everything. The FBI tried to prove he was a communist. They couldn't. They tried to link him to foreign agents. There was no evidence. What they found was a man who loved his country and believed in its founding principles: justice, equality, the promises America made but hadn't kept.
Because I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
And I consider Dr. Martin Luther King one of the greatest Americans who ever lived. But greatness doesn't equal perfection. Dr. King struggled with infidelity, so J. Edgar Hoover got personal. On November 21st, 1964, an unmarked package arrived at King's home. His wife, Coretta, opened it. Inside was a tape and a letter. The tape contained the hotel recordings. The letter was unsigned. It called Dr. King names that I won't repeat here. But the final paragraph was clear. King, there is only one thing left for you to do. You know what it is. You have 34 days. 34 days. Dr. King was scheduled to receive the Nobel Peace Prize in 35 days. The letter was telling him to kill himself, or the FBI would destroy him publicly. The letter was likely written by William Sullivan, the FBI's assistant director, but the government has never admitted this. But the Church Committee found the evidence. A draft was in Sullivan's files. COINTELPRO conducted over 2,000 documented actions. They forged letters to create conflicts, planted negative stories in newspapers, sent people to prison on false charges, incited violence between groups, destroyed marriages, ruined careers, drove people to suicide. The CIA watched, the FBI destroyed. But controlling people through force wasn't enough. They wanted to control people without realizing they were being manipulated. To do that, they deployed an even more powerful weapon: the media. There's a reason that protecting the press shows up right in the First Amendment. The Founding Fathers knew that democracy needs watchdogs. The press was supposed to hold the powerful accountable. Instead, the press became their mouthpiece. The CIA had been manipulating journalists since the early 1950s. Now we know this as Operation Mockingbird, but there was no official name for it. Inside the agency, Frank Wisner, who ran covert operations, called it his mighty Wurlitzer, a massive organ that would play any tune you wanted. It started in the early days of the Cold War under Allen Dulles. The CIA needed to influence public opinion against the Soviets, and major news organizations were more than happy to help. Publishers, editors, reporters. A few were patriots who thought they were serving their country. Some enjoyed playing spy, and some journalists had no agenda at all. They just liked the money.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
More than 400 American journalists had secretly carried out assignments for the CIA for 25 years. And not small-town papers. These were reporters at the New York Times, CBS, Time Magazine, Newsweek, the AP, Reuters, Washington Post, the biggest names in American media. Some journalists were full CIA employees using journalism as cover, and the publishers knew. Arthur Hayes Sulzberg at the New York Times, William Paley at CBS, they cooperated directly with the CIA. When the agency needed a story planted, they'd make a call. The story would run. When they needed a story killed, another call, and the story would go away.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about the trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The New York Times gave CIA employees press credentials. They posed as reporters while conducting intelligence operations. Journalists spied on foreign leaders. They carried money to CIA assets. They provided their hotel rooms for secret meetings. When the CIA overthrew governments in Iran and Guatemala, the American press explained why it was necessary. When the agency needed support for the Vietnam War, headlines appeared. The American people thought they were reading news. They were reading CIA propaganda.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish fake stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
The Church Committee exposed this collaboration. Bernstein documented it, but nothing really changed. Because once you control the news, you control the narrative. You control what people think, and that power is too valuable to give up. But even total control of information has limits. To truly control a population, you need to control their minds directly. And one CIA scientist believed he'd found the way. Controlling the news wasn't enough. The CIA wanted to control minds directly, not through propaganda or manipulation, through chemistry, through torture, through techniques that would break a person's mind so they could rebuild it. The program was called MK Ultra, run by Sidney Gottlieb, the CIA's chief chemist. His colleagues called him the Black Sorcerer. From 1953 to 1973, Gottlieb had unlimited funds and zero oversight. His mission, develop mind control techniques for the CIA. And MK Ultra wasn't one program. It was 149 sub-projects. 80 institutions were involved, 44 colleges and universities, 15 research foundations, 12 hospitals, 185 private researchers. Georgetown University Hospital got $375,000 to run a hospital safe house. The CIA would bring subjects there, dose them with LSD, watch them for days, record everything. One mental patient was given LSD for 174 consecutive days. His name was never recorded. What happened to him was never documented. He was just one test subject among thousands.
Between the years of 1957 and 1984, I became a pawn in a government scheme whose ultimate goal was mind control and to create the perfect spy, all through the use of chemicals, radiation, drugs, hypnosis, electric shock, isolation in tubs of water, sleep deprivation, brainwashing, verbal, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse.
Operation Midnight Climax was an interesting sub-project. The CIA set up brothels in San Francisco and New York, two-way mirrors in every room. Prostitutes on CIA payroll would bring men back, slip LSD into their drinks, and CIA officers would watch from behind the mirrors. They photographed everything. The men never knew they'd been drugged. They went home to their families thinking they'd lost their minds. Dr. Ewan Cameron ran experiments at Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal. He called it depatterning, erasing minds through torture. Patients were put in drug-induced comas for weeks, given electric shock at 30 times normal intensity, and forced to listen to recorded messages for 16 hours a day. Some victims forgot their families. They forgot their names. Their entire lives were erased.
I was exploited unwittingly for nearly 3 decades of my life, and the only explanations given to me were that, quote, the end justifies the means, and, quote, I was serving my country in their bold effort to fight communism. I can only summarize my circumstances by saying they took an already abused 7-year-old child and compounded my suffering beyond belief. The saddest part is, I know for a fact that I was not alone. There were countless other children in my same situation, and there was no one to help us. I know for a fact that I was not alone.
Then there was Frank Olson, a scientist working in MKUltra. He expressed ethical concerns about the CIA's methods. He told his supervisor he wanted to resign. A few days later, Gottlieb's team slipped LSD into Olson's drink at a CIA retreat. On November 28, 1953, 9 days after being dosed, Olson went through a 10th floor hotel window. The CIA said he jumped. Suicide. Case closed. For 20 years, Gottlieb ran MKUltra with very little oversight and a tremendous amount of power. But now Congress was asking questions. If MKUltra got exposed, it would be a huge problem. So Sidney Gottlieb came up with a solution. He ordered all MKUltra records destroyed. Thousands of documents, 20 years of experiments, into the fire. Well, most of them, anyway. This is usually the part of the story where I debunk whatever myth or legend we've explored today, except everything in this episode is true. Sorry if it wasn't super fun, but I think these episodes are important to do from time to time. And this Family Jewels episode is just one in a series. So before you ask, yes, I am uncomfortable doing this.
Are the most problematic?
Most problematic for me are probably the CIA ones. The one I did that ended with the Agent Orange kind of expose was a kind of a dangerous one. It was the dark history of DARPA and all the bad stuff that DARPA's done since its founding. It's done some horrible stuff. And that was an episode I was afraid to release. There's been a couple of those.
Really?
MKUltra is kind of afraid to release because I name names. All of these CIA operations deserve their own episode. And I've covered some of them if you want more detail. Links are below. And there's plenty more to cover. But there's one I stay away from. Operation Mockingbird. Mockingbird exposed how tight the media is with the intelligence community. I haven't covered this because it's clearly still going on. Twitter, Facebook, and other social media platforms have already been exposed as either working with or being coerced by the FBI and other government agencies. This is fact. And if you follow TV news personalities closely, you'll see that a few are still on the CIA's payroll. I know their names, but I won't say them here. You'll know who I mean if you pay attention. Now, chaos really did index 300,000 Americans. That's also a fact. Fred Hampton was drugged by the FBI and murdered in his bed by local police, coordinated by the FBI. That's a fact. Frank Olson didn't jump from that hotel window. He had blunt force trauma to his head before he fell. No cuts from window glass. His family received $750,000 in hush money. The CIA admitted drugging him with LSD 9 days before his death, but that's about it. There's a link below to the full story. The Family Jewels documents exposed a lot of CIA secrets, but some mysteries are still unexplained. Item 1 in the Family Jewels is completely redacted. The whole thing is blacked out. And after everything else they revealed, assassinations, mind control, surveillance, what could be worse? What could be in there? I'm not sure we'll ever find out. I'm not sure we even want to know. Sidney Gottlieb destroyed most MKUltra records in 1973. We only know what survived because of budget files. How many subjects? How many people died? What techniques actually worked? We'll never know. The CIA made sure of that. And by the way, Gottlieb was never held accountable for any of it. Links below to more. And programs like these don't disappear. They evolve. They even get legalized. After 9/11, Congress passed the Patriot Act. Suddenly, what got the CIA in trouble in the 1970s became standard procedure. Mass surveillance? Legal. Collecting data on Americans without warrants? Legal, with a FISA court rubber stamp. Those secret courts approved 99.97% of government surveillance requests. That's not oversight, that's theater. Both parties voted for it. Both parties renewed it. Republicans championed it under Bush. Democrats expanded it under Obama. Trump reauthorized it. Biden extended it again. Every few years, they pretend to debate it, then they quietly renew it. Because once government gets a power, it never gives it back. What took Operation Chaos years to collect on 300,000 Americans, the NSA now collects on everyone in minutes. Phone records, email metadata, internet searches, financial transactions.
Does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir. Verizon offers its telephone customers what's called the Share Everything plan. Well, the irony of that did not escape a lot of folks today when it was revealed that Verizon has been sharing the phone records of millions with U.S. intelligence. And sources tell us this evening that surveillance extended to the internet as well.
The government is spying on even more of our online activities than anyone imagined. New leaks describe a program allowing the government to snoop into a wide range of activity most Americans believe should be protected.
The National Security Agency is operating a massive database system that allows analysts to scour individuals' emails, Facebook chats, and internet browsing histories at will.
Exposing the CIA's family jewels should have been a cautionary tale, a warning. Instead, the intelligence community turned this into a series of tests. They tested the American people to see how many laws they would be allowed to break. They tested us to see what freedoms we would surrender. They tested us to see if we would hold anyone accountable. The CIA, FBI, and our entire intelligence apparatus has been testing us for 50 years. And for 50 years, we the people have failed every test. So what can we do? Probably nothing. The last person to openly say the CIA needed an overhaul was John F. Kennedy. How'd that work out?
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Chances are very strong that if you watch various shows on conservative or alternative media that you've been told by some various show hosts about free or bonus silver that you will get if you work with their gold companies. Now, I don't blame necessarily these hosts. They just don't know exactly what they're offering. They're just saying what their sponsors tell them to say. Unfortunately for them, and more unfortunately for you, these offers are scams. They just are. And again, I'm not ripping on show hosts that are offering it. I've got a lot of friends that do it, and by golly, they do it for whatever reason they do it. I, on the other hand, work with a company that does not insult your intelligence by pretending to offer you $10,000 in free silver. I work with Augusta Precious Metals, and you can learn more about them, including how the free silver scam operates by going to patriot.tv/silver. That is patriot.tv/silver. Fantastic work by AJ over at the Y-Files. They've got a great team. They do excellent research. Obviously, I don't agree with everything they say. I don't agree with everything that anybody says, and neither should you. But this one was good. This one was really good, and I can't wait for the rest of the series to come out. That was part one. It's shocking that there's a whole lot more. One of the notes, or one of the things that really struck me, was that he's like, in this document, in this great reveal, they're willing to talk about, committing murder and blackmail and all of these various awful things, but there's still certain things that are redacted. And it's like, holy crap, what worse could they be doing so bad that it's even worse than the things that they're willing to admit. That was a very telling point And as should be noted, anytime any of us, any show hosts, talk about the CIA, I'd like to note that I am not suicidal, have no suicidal tendencies. I love being here, love doing my work, love my family, blah, blah, blah. So if you ever hear of any foul news happening to me, it's probably the CIA. Speaking of conspiracy theories, I'm now going to turn to my good friends Alex Newman and Glenn Beck. They did a breakdown, and I think this is important context because we're going to be talking about this along with AI, along with Epstein, along with everything that's happening with the Obama, whatever you want to call it, I don't want to call it revelation because we're not there yet. The teaser, we'll call it. Whatever else comes out with this Obama Clinton Clapper teaser, well, they're going to try to debunk it, they being the legacy media, because as AJ noted, they are still controlled. They're going to try to debunk it amongst Democrats. They're already calling for Tulsi Gabbard to step down as a result of this. They're saying, no, don't release any more. They're panicking, and they should be. They really should be panicking. This is an important story, and we need to get out there. But they're going to be focusing and using the words conspiracy theory to try to debunk it, or malinformation, which is something that Alex Newman is about to talk about in this clip. Pay attention. This is important stuff. And again, brace yourselves, prepare, because this isn't like, okay, information's out there, now everybody's going to go to jail. That's just not how it works, even though it probably should. People do bad things, they get caught, so there's an investigation, charges filed, arrests made, prosecutions, and then jail time. That's how things should work, especially considering that Democrats are fond of saying no one is above the law. Okay, well, prove it. You broke the law, go to jail. Turn yourself in. Make it simple. Confess. Of course, we know that's not going to happen. All right, here's Alex Newman and Glenn Beck.
And even the term conspiracy, this is something that the CIA tried to popularize as a term of ridicule. I encourage people to open up their dictionaries. The word conspiracy just means two or more people working in secret on some immoral, illegal, or nefarious objective. Right. So there are conspiracies all over the place. Nobody would be surprised to know that two businessmen conspired to fix prices. Nobody would be surprised to know that two politicians conspired to get something through the legislature. But we're trained, almost like Pavlov's dogs. We're conditioned to recoil in horror when somebody says the term conspiracy. Well, we shouldn't. The Department of Justice charges people with conspiracy virtually every day of the week in this country. So do state prosecutors.
Well, Cass Sunstein with Obama, wrote that famous argument, academic only, that to discredit people, you have to say this is a conspiracy theory, even if it is true. Right. You call it a conspiracy theory because it will at least slow everything down.
Yep. And they have a new term now that they've been using. I'm sure you've seen malinformation, which is information that's true, but the elites have determined is being put out there for purposes that they disagree with. So it's amazing now that we're in a world where truth is no longer a defense, right? You can't say that even if it's true because, pick your term, conspiracy theory, malinformation, Russia, whatever it is. And I think as people who value truth, we should stand on truth, regardless of what nudgers like Cass Sunstein want us to feel when we're accused of being so-called conspiracy theorists or whatever.
But there is a difference, right? You said, let's define the terms. There is a difference between a conspiracy and a conspiracy theory.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
What is the difference?
So a theory is a conspiracy theory is a hypothesis or a theory about a possible conspiracy. And everybody comes up with these. I mean, we're human beings. We're not animals, so we notice patterns. I don't think it's wise to promote conspiracy theories unless and until you have evidence proving that it's true.
Correct.
But the fact that there are conspiracies is irrefutable. To go back to Psalm 2, 3,000 years ago, David was writing about the kings of the earth and the rulers conspiring, is how a lot of translations render that against God.
It's the way humans are.
Right.
It's the way we operate. And, if you want to define conspiracy only as bad and evil, well, there are good conspiracies, I think, as well. People that get together and say, you know what? I think doing X, Y, and Z. I think the secret part is where it starts to get a little nefarious. But we conspire with each other to move things forward, and we're always, on both sides, convinced that it's good.
Yeah. Well, and I think there is something in human nature where sometimes we justify things to ourselves that we know are not right. And I think there's a lot of that going on with the elites. To go back to what we started the conversation with, a lot of these guys justify conspiring with each other. And, David Rockefeller actually uses that term, to go back to David Rockefeller. If you get his autobiography, if you pick up the original copy, page 405, you'll see he's actually bragging. He uses the term conspiring. He says some even believe that we, talking about the Rockefeller family, are part of a secret cabal, is the term he uses, that we're conspiring against the best interests of the United States with internationalists, or as Trump would have called them, the globalists, to build a more integrated one world political and economic structure, a one world order, if you will. He says, if that's the charge, I stand guilty and I'm proud of it. So by David Rockefeller's own admission, he is guilty and proud of conspiring with a secret cabal against the best interests of his own country to build a one world order.
Correct.
So how can somebody say there's no conspiracy? Well, the guy's bragging about it. It's a smoking gun confession. What more do you need?
I'm trying to remember the name of the professor. I think he was from Harvard. Wrote Tragedy and Hope.
Carol Quigley.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton's mentor.
Right. And he comes out in Tragedy and Hope and says, there's this conspiracy. Wars will change. Everything he outlined is absolutely been happening ever since. And he said, we're doing it to build a more stable world. So there's no more tragedy like World War I and number 2. Wars will be different because we've tied all of our economies together. He was disavowed. I think he was with 5 different presidents. And once he wrote the book, they were all like, I don't know him.
They really threw him under the bus.
Yeah, threw him under the bus. But it's still not well known, with the average person that, they do admit this stuff. They do admit it.
I keep a copy of his books in my office, A Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time, and also The Anglo-American Establishment. And what he says is so fascinating. He's like, you know what? I agree with these guys. I've been close to them for decades, he says. They even gave me a period of a few years to examine their secret papers. And I agree, he says, with most of what they're doing. He said, my chief difference of opinion is that they want to be in the shadows. They want to be secret. And I think their role in history, he says, is significant enough that it ought to be publicly known.
So that is the biggest thing for me on all of this stuff. I have no problem losing a battle, an intellectual battle, with somebody who's actually presenting the truth. You know what I mean? This is our goal. This is how we see things. This is the way we want to go. And somebody else saying the opposite. If you have that battle back and forth and it's honest, I don't have I may not like it, but I have less of a problem because at least that's what people decided. And who am I to say I'm wrong? They won't do that because, why should I engage with these idiots? Right?
Yeah. And I think there's also a sense they understand that if these ideas were to be discussed out in the open, they would lose, right? Say, hey,
but they lose because they're nationalists. They're small-minded, they're racist, whatever.
Right-wing extremists and conspiracy theorists.
Right.
They've got these terms that they're on. And it's very unfortunate that, multiple generations of children have now been conditioned in the schools to respond this way. It's not that they're thinking about the evidence or what you've stated. They're just conditioned to respond very emotionally to these trigger words. So it's not that they're listening to what you're saying and evaluating your argument, figuring out if it's a logical argument, if the conclusion follows logically from the premises. They're just having an emotional response. Like Pavlov's dogs were drooling. Well, there's a racist or conspiracy theorist without actually thinking about it. And so the people who are pushing these ideas know that if these ideas were to be discussed and debated openly, hey, we want to run your life for you. We think there are too many of you on the planet. We want to remove your ability to govern yourself as a nation. We want to move power and authority to regional and international institutions. A fair debate about that would absolutely crush this agenda.
Yes.
So they can't let it happen.
Correct.
Great stuff there by Alex Newman and Glenn Beck. Very smart guys, very brave guys. We don't get enough I think in conservative and alternative media, we don't have enough people trying to speak the truth and trying to really speak the truth. I'm not talking about whatever's popular and the hot topic and how do we get clicks and all that stuff. I'm talking about real truth that people need to understand. And I'm certain that nearly everybody in my audience was very well aware of the concepts of malinformation and conspiracy theories and how it's used against us, weaponized in a way to keep us not looking in the right direction. But not all of your friends and cronies are aware. So I would strongly suggest sharing that particular clip from Glenn Beck's program. So we did have, I would consider to be a lot of distractions at the end of the week. And it's not even distractions. These were all redirections, okay? Our efforts. People like me who have a hard time letting go of Epstein, and no, I'm not letting it go. And I know we didn't talk about it so far, but it's not done yet as far as I'm concerned. But a lot of people did move on as a result of I can only call it a brilliant play by the White House. Okay, President Trump tried the straight out, you're all stupid if you're focusing on this. That didn't work. It only made people screaming louder. So then they busted out with a triple play, a master play. Within 24 hours, they were able to change the conversation just as they wanted to. First, they had the fake Wall Street Journal post. I mean, it's so fake to the point that I think that perhaps, unlikely, but it's a slight possibility that maybe they were actually working with the White House, working with Trump, Wall Street Journal or Rupert Murdoch or whoever, working with Trump to help him to distract him, because it was such a nothing burger that even people that hate Trump are like, dudes, what are you doing? I mean, CNN was going out there saying, that's bad decision by Wall Street Journal. They didn't latch on to the whole idea that, wow, bombshell, Trump sent a birthday card with boobies on it. Fake boobies that he drew, apparently, even though he doesn't draw things. Whatever. So there's that. That was distraction number one. Okay. Distraction number two, it's like, okay, you guys win. We're going to go ahead and release the Epstein files. Trump and Pam Bondi, we're going to release relevant and court-approved transcripts from the grand jury investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. You guys win. This is exactly what you want. And of course, that's not exactly what we want at all. It's not going to reveal anything. Okay, it's a nothing burger again. But you had a whole bunch of people, even those who were calling for the release of all the various Epstein files, client lists, whatever. You had a lot of those people saying, okay, well, it's forward progress. I guess it's something. Let's take our victory and roll with it. It's like, okay. But then the coup de grace, the big distraction, which is a righteous distraction, I'm glad that they did it, was, of course, the DNI released by Tulsi Gabbard, giving us some more fodder, something else to discuss. Now, in reality, not trying to poo-poo on it, because I'm sure there's going to be some really good stuff come from this. Maybe not arrests. That would be awesome if there were. I'm not going to hold my breath, though. But at the end of the day, is anybody shocked? Okay, maybe normies watching CNN or Fox News. It's like, oh my gosh, you mean Barack Obama and James Clapper and Susan Rice and Hillary Clinton? Wait a second, you're telling me that they were involved in the Russiagate? Oh my gosh. No, none of it's mind-blowing. But it's further confirmation. Again, I'm not poo-pooing on it. I'm glad that it came out, and we'll see what comes from it. But it's not like this is something where, and maybe I'm wrong. Okay, maybe your average Joe had no idea. Maybe I'm living in a bubble where it's like, yeah, okay, duh. we knew that. We've known that for nearly a decade now. Come on, guys. But in reality, maybe this is righteous. But here's the thing. It's official now. It's not conspiracy theory. It's not regular theory. It's not just Alex Jones and Rucker and Tucker and whoever talking about it. Okay, now, oh, wow, crap. Now Fox News is going to talk about it. Now, New York Post is going to talk about it. Maybe even, it'd be crazy if like CBS or NBC or somebody started talking about it. That's probably not going to happen, but so be it. Point is that I get it. This week we will be talking more about that, especially as real information comes out, new information, hopefully. We'll be talking about, we are going to continue talking about Jeffrey Epstein. We're not letting that go. Okay, but we need more information. We need to recharge, regroup, because I'm not going to keep repeating myself over and over again. We are going to continue to talk about artificial intelligence. That's what today's show is going to be about before all this stuff dropped. So maybe in the afternoon show. So we will see. Lord willing, I will be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, you all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless.
You're listening to the J.D. Rucker Show. Please keep hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the vehicle at all times.
All right, let's do a little education regarding sanctuary cities, sanctuary jurisdictions in general. And I know, don't get me wrong, I know that you, my wonderful and brilliant audience, has no need for an education. You have no support whatsoever for sanctuary cities. But I believe that, I don't know if it's a majority, perhaps a majority, maybe it's a slight minority, but there's a lot of Democrats. There are a ton of Democrats who simply don't understand what sanctuary cities are, what they're actually supporting. So, to that end, let's discuss it. This is, of course, in reference to the illegal alien who, over the weekend, shot a Border Patrol officer in the face. This is someone who was in custody, who had a deportation order, who should not be in this country. Let alone, forget about the fact that he shouldn't have come to this country in the first place, but there was an opportunity that was missed. An opportunity, thanks to sanctuary status, for this man, this monster, as President Trump referred to him, this monster illegal alien, to have been deported, but he wasn't because of sanctuary policies. So, to that end, before we do that, let me go ahead and play this clip, because he says it much better than me or pretty much anybody else. Let's show this clip of Tom Homan, who is explaining, folks, this is what's going to happen.
I'll say it again, sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals. And I'm going to work very hard with Secretary Noem to keep President Trump's promise and his commitment several weeks ago that sanctuary cities are now our priority. We're going to flood the zone. You don't want to let us into jail to arrest a bad guy in the safety and security of a jail. You want to release him into the street, which makes it unsafe for the community, makes it unsafe for the officer, makes it unsafe for the alien. Anything can happen on a street arrest. So what we're going to do, we're going to have more agents in New York City to look for that bad guy. So sanctuary cities get exactly what they don't want, more agents in the community and more agents in the work site. If we can't arrest a bad guy in the safety and security of the county jail, then we'll arrest him in the community, and we'll arrest him in the jail. And when we arrest him in the community, if he's with others that are in the country illegally, they're coming too.
Wonderful stuff, as always, from the great and wonderful Tom Homan. Borders are one of probably, I would say, definitely top three, maybe number one overall pick by Donald Trump. And it's not even a cabinet position, but it has been an effective pick. I don't think anyone, not even leftists, can deny that. They might not agree with how he's being effective, but or what he's being effective at, but they should agree that he's being effective. So, why should sanctuary cities be completely and totally abolished? And these are reasons to tell your leftist buddies. We already know why. You and I do. But for any Democrats anyone who's supportive of this, let's make them understand. Number one, these are, as Tom Homan pointed out, these are sanctuaries for criminals. Okay? Sanctuary policies do not affect, some regular, average, illegal alien who's not breaking the law, who's going to work or whatever. The people that I think most Democrats are trying to protect, they're actually hurting with sanctuary policies. They think that sanctuary policies are going to affect that person who's just trying to raise a family or just trying to live the American dream or whatever. No. Sanctuary policies specifically and singularly benefit criminal illegal aliens, those who have not just broken the law by being here in the first place, but who have broken the law for other reasons. That's what a sanctuary cities policy does. And then, which brings us to number 2. Oh well, but we gotta protect them all in order to protect those who are quote unquote innocent, right? Guess what? Sanctuary policies harm those who are quote unquote innocent. It makes it more likely that those people will be deported because, as Tom Homan pointed out, if they can grab a bad guy while he's in county jail, all right, they put on the ICE detainer, sanctuary policies aside, they hold that person until ICE comes and picks them up and deports them. That's easy. They get that guy, great, and that's it. If in a sanctuary city that guy goes out and he goes and hangs out with a bunch of other illegal aliens, perhaps other illegal aliens who are not quote unquote criminal illegal aliens, they're here illegally, but they haven't otherwise committed crimes. Guess what? ICE comes, finds him, and they will have to not just take him into custody, but any illegal aliens that are there. They call it like collateral deportation or whatever. So by protecting the criminal, you are actually, these Democrats, these bleeding heart leftists, they're out there, they're actually making it much more likely that the innocent illegal aliens are going to be captured and deported. It's dumb. And then, number 3, let's just state the obvious. The danger of taking someone who is already in police custody, taking that person and transferring custody from the local police to ICE, the chances of that going south or turning violent or anyone being hurt as a result, whether it's the police or ICE agents or the criminal himself or any innocent bystanders, the chances of that happening during a proper non-sanctuary city transfer is pretty much nil. Okay, he's in custody, now he's in a different custody, and he's deported. Nobody gets hurt. Let that person out in your sanctuary city, and now all of a sudden, he can go get armed, as the gentleman, the illegal, the monster in New York did. He might get out because of sanctuary policies. He might get a gun. He might shoot a Border Patrol agent or a baby or somebody else, some innocent person, and shoot them and kill them or shoot them in the face or whatever, or go commit a crime or whatever, steal, rob, something like that. The danger that's created by the sanctuary city, again, this isn't created by ICE. This is created by the sanctuary city's policies that make it harder on ICE. Those policies put people in danger. So when you're talking to your leftist buddy, when you're talking to your bleeding heart Democrat who thinks, oh, sanctuary city policies, they'll keep my friend's abuela from being deported. No, they won't. They won't. They make it more likely that the abuela will be deported. They make it more likely that the abuela will be robbed or kidnapped or raped or murdered or just killed in crossfire because of the sanctuary policies. Let's go back to reason number 1. Sanctuary policies only help criminals. That's it. It doesn't help the community. It doesn't help other illegal aliens. It doesn't help ICE. It doesn't help the police. And here's, as Tom Homan noted, they got to flood the zone now. Because of sanctuary city policy, you'll be like, oh, we just need less ICE here. Okay, well then end sanctuary city policies and you will have fewer ICE agents in your city. I mean, it blows my mind how insanely stupid these people are. And I'm not talking about the people that are making the policies. They get it. They know it. Okay? Democrat politicians, they know, and they don't need an education at all. They're fully aware of that. They want it. Democrat politicians who push sanctuary city policies want their communities to be unsafe. They want there to be an event. These Democrats, they won't ever come out and say it, but these Democrats want your abuela to be raped and murdered. You might be like, oh, no, that couldn't be what they want. No, that is literally exactly precisely what they want to happen. They want to be like, oh my gosh, he wasn't hurting anybody, but then ICE came along, and because ICE was there, he had to take the abuela as hostage, and then he did all those hideous things to her and then murdered her. It's because of ICE. It's not because they could have taken him into custody. based upon the law when he was captured by local police because he had, well, broken the law again. The politicians that push these, they're not stupid. The Democrat voters, the ICE protesters out there, the ones who are promoting sanctuary city policies, who are so delusional, so lost that they think Tom Homan is the problem instead of their Democrat politicians. These sheep, these are, and no offense to you if you know somebody who's like that, and not that I would offend you, but let them know that as far as I'm concerned, they are the stupidest possible human. Okay, beyond like mental problems, like beyond Joe Biden problems. Okay, because they should realize, they should be able to put this together, because it's not hard. It's right there, pretty blatant, and yet they willfully support it because they're either stupid or they, like their Democrat politicians that they adore, they actually want Abuela to be harmed. They want her to be kidnapped and raped and murdered because that will fit their political agenda. No, Trump bad, Orange Man bad, Tom Homan bad. Morons. Generally speaking, I'm almost always right. But I'm that guy that when I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong. I admit it. And I have been very wrong for years, for decades, really, when it comes to free trade versus fair trade. I'm still a free market guy, but I now understand, thanks to President Trump's tariffs and the results of those tariffs, not just now, but also during his first administration, I now realize that the only way we could ever achieve free trade in the global economy is if we start with fair trade. We have to level the playing field for American producers. And the only way to do that is through tariffs and other trade restrictions. Now it's like, okay, so if the only way we can ever get to free trade, which I want, is through fair trade. And it's playing out in ways that many people that I had respected from an economic perspective, they were just wrong. Okay, especially when it comes to food. Food is something that they were saying, oh my gosh, you watch, the grocery store, the prices are going to skyrocket as soon as we start imposing tariffs on Canada and Mexico and the European Union and Australia, and places where we import our food, it's going to be pandemonium. Dogs and cats living together, it's going to be horrible. And here we are, and it isn't. And I think the best example of that, or one of the best examples that I've seen, came from a local report over at WVTM 13 in Alabama. They talked to some local tomato farmers, and wow.
Smith Tomato Farm has been a fixture here on top of Chandler Mountain in St. Clair County for about 60 years. Chad Smith says he's seen a lot of changes over the years, and not in a positive direction.
Less than 20 years ago, there was over 10 farms here on this mountain. Now there's barely 5, probably going to be 4 within a couple years. And as another 20 years goes by, there's going to be less and less.
Blake Thaxton with the Alabama Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association says the U.S. agreement with Mexico, first set in the late 90s, was meant to protect U.S. farmers, but it wasn't working.
There's been loopholes that the Mexican tomato producers have taken advantage of and continue to price dump or lower the prices below the cost of production here in the United States and in Alabama.
If they send the tomatoes over and it's supposed to be a set price and they need to move tomatoes, well, they may just give a load of bell pepper for free for them to take the tomatoes. So it's never really worked.
Now, without that agreement, the U.S. has a 17% tariff on tomatoes from Mexico.
So a lot of these tomatoes will actually be going out today.
Smith says he's already seeing a more level playing field.
It's only been 2 days now, and we've actually have a lot more calls of people having interest in doing business. And the price hasn't even changed.
Food security is national security, and we need to be able to produce our own food here in the United States.
Those last words were so very true. Folks, food security really is national security. Okay, a nation that is beholden on others, or a nation that cannot feed itself or feed its people, that nation is insecure. But from both internal challenges, obviously, from internal strife, as well as from external elements, external influences. You have to be able to feed yourself. Now, we as a nation, we have been so blessed we were one of the few nations that if we were ever truly fully isolated from the rest of the world, we would be fine. We would be hunky-dory. Some would argue, and I'm not quite there, but I'm close, some would argue that if we ever did become completely and totally isolated, that maybe things would be better. Yeah, I'm quickly falling in line with that. But let's talk about security real quick. So we'll talk about food security here in a bit. But as far as everything else, okay, there are very few things where we are truly dependent on other nations. Unfortunately, pharmaceuticals, that's one of the areas where we are dependent right now. And unfortunately, we're dependent on communist China for that. Rare earth minerals, it's another area where we're very reliant, once again, on communist China. Of course, they're very reliant on us as well. So that's why as frenemies for decades, it's been okay. We've had this détente, so to speak. But they do work against us. And to be fair, we work against them any way we can. The best thing we can do is to become independent when it comes to those two areas and a handful of other areas that make us dependent on them or anyone else. Now, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, I think that's going to work itself out, and that's something that can be done more quickly. Let's say we do get cut off from China. I think we can fix it pretty quickly. Whereas with rare earths, that's going to take a lot longer. But thankfully, praise God, Donald Trump and his administration is working in that direction. They're trying to make it to where, yes, we are able to mine our own rare earths in order to maintain our technological advancements and continue to grow technologically. But when it comes to food, we don't need anything. We just need to treat farmers better. We need to utilize this opportunity, this time where we are imposing tariffs on imports and regrow our own food supply here in the United States of America so that we can feed ourselves. And if we do have extra, great, we can export. But I don't want to be importing anything that we don't absolutely positively need, especially when it comes to food. We need to focus on growing our own food, raising our own livestock, making sure that our farmers and ranchers are taken care of, and making sure that we're not utilizing the global economy, okay, the New World Order, the vision that George H.W. Bush first really pushed out there, okay? We need to just stop it when it comes to food completely. I'm not saying we don't import, but we should not need to import anything when it comes to our food. We should be able to isolate ourselves and grow our own, feed our own people, and take advantage of this wonderful abundance that we've been gifted by God here in the United States of America. Food security really is a national security issue. It's undeniable. It's been that way since the dawn of humanity. Any nation that can feed its people is in better shape than a nation that cannot. But it's not just at the national level. Food security is something that we as Americans should take responsibility for, should be reliant on ourselves for as much as possible. Now, I'm a huge fan of truly taking care of yourself, right? I mean, getting not necessarily off-grid, but maybe off-grid, getting yourself a homestead or at least a big garden, get yourself some chickens or goats or whatever, cows if you can, if you've got the space, and making sure that you can feed yourself, feed your family, and then, if you have abundance, that you can help to feed your community. It should be localized as much as possible. And if you don't have the ability to do that, so be it. Work with your local farmers and local ranchers. These are things that we as Americans should be doing in preparation for whatever's to come. And here's the thing. Let's say nothing bad happens. Awesome. Praise God. It's still good to know your local ranchers, your local farmers, or to be growing your own food as much as possible. But for many of us, being able to secure that is just not as easy as going out and getting a homestead. It's one of the reasons that I work very closely with my very good friends over at Heaven's Harvest. They have done a fantastic job of putting together a true long-term storage food solution. It's all American. They use heirloom seeds. They only use the good stuff. They produce the types of food buckets and food bags and heirloom seeds that Americans need. Go to patriot.tv/food, patriot.tv/food. Use promo code PATRIOT, and you will get a very nice discount. And really, take advantage. Take advantage of this discount. Take advantage of this opportunity before it's too late. All right, let's talk briefly, very briefly, about Stephen Colbert. I'm not going to rehash the news about him losing his show. I'm not going to go over the unhinged radical leftists, particularly those in Hollywood, who are claiming that this is President Trump got him fired. This is about Trump. Everything's about Trump. No, I don't care about those people, and neither should you. And I'm not even going to highlight there was a lot of discussion over the weekend about how this is really, it took a tremendous legacy, a 33-year legacy, one that was built by David Letterman, and ruined it because of politics. I agree with all that, right? Except I sort of disagree at least a bit. There is a difference. If this was just about Stephen Colbert's programming or his policies or anything like that, then we would have seen, okay, well, let's just replace him. Okay, that's what they do. They don't like the ratings, they don't like the topics, they don't like something about somebody, they don't like how much they're paying him, they move on. And it has been highlighted that this was a financial decision. I think he ended up losing like $40 million a year, or CBS lost $40 million a year on the show. Fine, great, awesome. No. This is about a shift, though. And I would argue that late night television in general is going to die. It's in the process of dying. I remember when I was a kid, and I'm not going to say who I was watching or who America was watching. There were fewer shows, late night shows, obviously back then, but there were also they were better. They were just better shows, better overall. Not political one bit. I mean, if there was any politics, it would be pretty much equal. They would rip on both sides. They just hated politicians. They didn't rip on this policy. They didn't support anybody. Okay. Like it was fun. It was fun to watch. But we used to talk about it when I was a kid, and even when I was a young adult. I mean, it's like, hey, did you watch such and such last night? It's like, and I would almost always say no because I never really got into them. But I did watch clips. It was good. It was fine. It was the way that many Americans, after a long day, went to work, came home, ate dinner, spent some time with the family, and then unwound, relaxed to some really chill laughs, right? Just funny stuff, interesting stuff, and then they would go fade off to sleep. America has changed. The world has changed. And that's really what I want to focus on, because it's not going back. If, let's say, for example, that late night television, they started taking a hint, and they started going back to the old style. They started just doing comedy. They started putting out really good programming. They started getting really good guests, and it wasn't all about Orange Man Bad, or it wasn't all about, I think there's at least one or two late night, maybe one, conservative late night show. Yeah, it's not all about Democrats bad. They're all bad. Politicians are bad, but let's focus on some other funny stuff. What's the news of the day? Let's make people laugh. Let's say they did that. Would that bring the audiences back? No, things have changed completely. People now spend their time on their devices, whether it's an old school computer, a big screen, or maybe it is your television, but your television is no longer playing CBS or NBC or anything like that. Late night, you're maybe going through and you got YouTube hooked up to it, or Netflix or Hulu or whatever. Or let's say you are just scanning through channels like in the old days, okay, but you're not looking for that kind of stuff because you have access to so many different types of entertainment, so many different ways to quote unquote unwind. But here's the difference. And I think this is the point I wanted to bring up. And it's really just an observation. There's no action item here. It's just that what people are doing when the Americans that used to be spending their time late at night unwinding to late night talk shows, now those same Americans, or the new variations, the 30 to 50-year-olds, will say, of today, what they're doing has nothing to do with unwinding to late night television. They're finding other activities, other things to do. Some of them good, some of them bad, some of them indifferent. But much of it is geared towards our phones or our tablets or computers, which is growing more and more rare every day. It really is about our phones, right? Staring at screens. We went from the screen in front of us on the floor or the wall to the screen directly in front of us, right in front of our faces. And that's a very bad thing. I'm scared for the future. If we aren't wiped out by some apocalyptic events here in the next between now and 2030, or shortly thereafter, then I would imagine that this is a sign of the degradation of our society. We're talking about from a mental perspective, yes, a psychological perspective, absolutely. From a health perspective, you betcha. All of it is going to be affected and is in the process of being affected. It's not just about late night television. It's about everything else that's happening. Like during the day, we're stuck on our screens. At night, in the morning, first thing we check, a lot of people, wake up, check your phone, see what's happening. What'd you miss? Any texts, any tweets, any TikToks, whatever. I don't even know. I know I don't do that. I wake up and I go downstairs and I I hop on the computer and I check the news. You might be like, isn't that the same thing? Yeah, in a way it is. I just don't look at my phone. I don't use my phone very much. And that doesn't make me any better or worse because I'm still staring at a screen. It just is what it is. So, is this going to change? I think it will. And now we cut to the chase. I think that it's going to shift in many ways to a more direct link, perhaps through audio and direct communication. And yes, of course, I am talking about artificial intelligence. The reason I'm bringing this up is because they're going to utilize this change over to screens, and we're going to start seeing more, and we're already seeing it, but it's actually going to start ramping up more and more. Attack on screens and entertainment on demand and all that stuff. That really killed television, right? Television killed the radio star. Well, mobile devices, internet, on-demand entertainment killed the television star. And what's going to kill these screens, will be artificial intelligence, including the perception, or what a lot of people are seeing in the future, of direct connection, direct interaction, a la Neuralink or whatever. So again, there's no action item here. I'm just letting you something, food for thought for you to notice, because you are going to start seeing more and more studies saying, stop looking at your screen. Screens are bad. Why look at your screen when you can just tell your screen what to do? Why even have a screen at all? Why not have a watch, a wearable, glasses, whatever? Something that's directly connected to artificial intelligence. It can be your assistant. It can be your companion. It could be your girlfriend. We're seeing more and more of that. And yes, there will be a screen attached, but eventually it's going to be not necessarily be a screen that's you hold in your hand or that you mount on your wall or put on your desk. It's going to be a screen that's right in front of your face, literally, through the visual aspect of it. And then they'll come up with hey, bypass all of that. Why should anybody else see what you're seeing? We'll just connect directly into your whatever, your optical nerve or something. And then eventually it will be connecting to the brain. Are we looking at 50 years from now, 100 years from now? I sure hope so. But if I'm being realistic, I'm saying it's probably within the next decade that we're going to see the rise of this. Could be within the next 5 years that we're going to see the rise of this. In the meantime, the push to get us more and more into artificial intelligence, it will continue. And this is just one reason, and a very minor reason, by the way, compared to the bigger reasons. This is one out of 147 reasons why I'm going to be talking a lot from now until whenever about artificial intelligence. During an earlier segment, I had noted the stupidity inherent in the philosophy of trying to preserve, to save sanctuary city status, sanctuary jurisdiction status, because the goals of the Democrats, the leftists, those who support it, not the politicians, they get it, but they're minions, they're sheep. Their goals are best served by eliminating sanctuary cities. And that seems to be the case on more than just the illegal alien issue. I would argue that, and I'm being kind when I say this, 80% of stances taken by Democrats, leftists, however you want to call them, 80% of those are based around ignorance and stupidity and perhaps even a bit of delusion. Like, they see things and it sort of makes sense to them because they're indoctrinated, or they're not thinking, or both, whatever. And I think that perhaps the biggest delusion that we've seen so far surrounds socialism, and it's growing. This isn't something, we're not winning this battle, folks. We're not winning the info war, as they like to say, when it comes to educating and educating the people and exposing them to the truths, the cold, hard truths surrounding socialism, Marxism, communism, just the collectivism in general. We're losing it. I mean, perhaps you and I are doing great in our perspectives. Maybe we always have been. Maybe you're a convert. Who knows? I think that in the middle, we're definitely winning. But when it comes to anybody who breaches that leftist barrier, once they get on that side, they're just getting worse. Ideologically, philosophically, they're just embracing things. They're doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on the idiocy, the lunacy, the delusion, the stupidity. They really, truly are. And that's, again, I'm not trying to be snooty here. I'm not trying to be like, oh, those dumb Democrats. It's not like that. No, I mean, legitimately, I am concerned over the lack of discernment that they possess. And socialism, Marxism, communism, these concepts are being embraced more, not less. Maybe not by numbers, but by passion. You know, the socialists are becoming more Marxist, right? More of the Democrats and even the semi-moderate leftists are becoming more willing to embrace Marxism. It's stupid, like I said, and I don't think anybody highlights such concepts better than John Stossel and his guests. He's got did one of his short little 5-minute clips, but it hits, and I would strongly recommend, if you have any leftist friends, make sure that they see this, because they do have to understand that invariably the concepts surrounding socialism on the surface might sound nice and kind and sweet, but in reality they always lead to death and destruction.
Take back our future and take back our lives!
Take back our lives from capitalism and greed.
The greed of the fossil fuel industry is literally destroying our planet.
Saving the planet, say these activists, requires socialism, because socialism creates
an environment that provides for all people, not just the privileged few.
This is simply nonsense. Just nonsense.
Tom Palmer, unlike AOC and most of us, has spent lots of time in socialist countries. Decades ago, he smuggled books into the Soviet Union. More recently, he's been driving in supplies for Ukraine. What he's seen convinces him that AOC and Bernie and these protesters are just wrong about what's green.
We tried socialism, so we ran the experiment. It was a catastrophe. Worst environmental record on the planet.
In China, socialist leaders noticed that sparrows ate valuable grain, so they launched a campaign encouraging people to kill every sparrow.
Billions of birds were killed. It was insanity.
People banged pans and blew horns, scaring the birds into staying in the air for longer than sparrows can tolerate.
These poor birds were exhausted and died and fell from the skies.
Officials with guns shot the birds.
You look at the people who were chasing down and killing the sparrows in the old films, they were into it.
If you failed to show enough enthusiasm for the socialist goals of the party, you are going to be in trouble.
The party's campaign succeeded. People killed nearly every sparrow. But
all it takes is 2 minutes of thinking to figure, wait a minute, who's going to eat all the bugs?
Without the birds, insects multiplied and destroyed more crops than the sparrows had.
People starved as a consequence of that. People confuse socialism with just a nice government or a government that's sweet or made up of my friends.
In reality, socialism means central planning. Over time, that ends badly.
What AOC wants to do is basically give the Pentagon or similar agencies control over the entire society. And she thinks that's going to turn out well. It's a joke.
China's central planners keep making mistakes. Many bodies of water are bright green because fertilizer runoff created algae blooms.
It kills everything.
Socialism creates pollution wherever it's been tried.
We see it in China.
And we saw it in Soviet Russia.
Stalin needed cotton for the army.
He decided it should be grown in a dry area. That required diverting water from the Aral Sea.
It is the 4th biggest inland lake in the world, and it shrank to
less than half its size.
Soviet planners caused catastrophic environmental costs to the whole population.
All right, that was then. Now the rules would be different. Now the rule would be green.
Strong government policy, which does not allow the greed and profiteering.
All the time we hear socialists say, well, next time we'll get it right. Next time. How many next times do you get?
Many, apparently.
What just happened?
Socialist mismanagement led to the disaster at Chernobyl. First response? Lie to the public.
The accident is well under control.
This HBO series is pretty accurate.
Cut the phone lines.
The first thing they did was tell everyone to shut up about it.
Contain the spread of misinformation.
Yet major American media still claim socialists protected the environment.
A New York Times op-ed credited Lenin's eco-warriors for establishing nature preserves.
These are not nature preserves, it's a fantasy. You can call something a nature preserve and feel good about it, but when you use it as a dumping ground for heavy metals, for radioactive waste, in what sense is it a nature preserve?
Capitalists destroy nature too. Free societies need some government rules to prevent that. But free markets with property rights often protect things better than bureaucrats can.
You get a private farmer. They're concerned about the ability of the farm to grow food next year, year after year after year after 100 years into the future, long after that farmer is going to be gone. Why? Because the farm has a capital value. That's the capital in capitalism. And the consequence is they want to maximize that.
That protects the environment. Also, capitalism creates wealth. When people have enough money that they don't have to worry about starving or freezing, they can afford to protect nature. That's why capitalist countries have cleaner air and water you can swim in, and they can afford to pay for wild animal preserves.
When no one has any property rights and people are poor, tigers and elephants are considered a burden and pests, and they kill them. When you're wealthier, you can afford more amenities. You can care about the environment.
Socialists say they care, but the real world shows that if we hope to protect the environment, capitalism just works better.
I apologize. I totally forgot to watch. I said, oh man, when I watched it the first time, I was thinking to myself, I have got to warn people to turn the volume down or something before hearing the shrill AOC. When she gets, I mean, her voice normally is really just unappealing, right? But when she gets in rant mode, holy cow. I mean, it's like, it's bad. That was a very good impersonation, by the way. So, yeah, socialism bad, obviously, clearly, unambiguously, and yet so many people, so many. Do not underestimate the ability of some of your friends, peers, relatives, whatever, falling for this crap. Because again, it's one of those things where on the surface, if you are, especially if you were indoctrinated into hating Donald Trump just for no reason whatsoever or for made up reasons, oh, he's racist, man, whatever, if those people, they will fall for, it's like, oh, so Trump doesn't like this, so I guess I'm a Marxist. Let's go Zoran, Ma'am Donnie. Yes, let's bring in the healing powers of Marxism. We have to keep reminding them. We have to keep showing them, and many of them will hate you for it. I've gone through this. I have family members who hate me. I mean, like literally, legitimately, fully hate me, and it is what it is. Thankfully, none of my immediate family, none of my kids hate me that I know of. I don't think my wife hates me. If she does, it's 3 decades. Maybe she's just the most tolerant woman in the world, which she actually is, but that's a discussion for another day, or maybe not for public consumption. Okay, so let's go to LA, though. Los Angeles, we had the fires. Bad stuff. We had communities coming together in spite of government, in spite of incompetence, in spite of what some would call intentional malfeasance, It was just a bad situation. The LA fires were horrible. And yet, here we are, months later, and very little has been done. It's not because there aren't the resources. There are the resources. The resources, I mean, they had concerts, they had massive donations coming through. Humanitarian aid was supposed to be flowing through like 1,000 different organizations, and yet there's people. There's still plenty of people who are still suffering to this day who haven't seen an ounce of aid. I mean, they're lucky if they get a bottle of water. And it's really starting to come out. So here's a local news report that demonstrates what we can only classify. I mean, the only way you can look at this, you can't, like, you lose $100,000, there's a chance, especially in a major city like Los Angeles, that it's incompetence, okay? It is. I mean, things get lost. But when you lose $100 million, that's when it's like, I wonder which politicians or politician friends or whoever, I wonder who got paid. Because the people that needed the aid, they're not getting paid.
Investigative journalist Sue Pasco has been digging for answers, and what she's discovered might just surprise you. And Sue Pasco, she joins me now live on set. You are the editor of Circling the News. Yes, we can clearly see that. Thanks for the work that you're doing. So this is personal and professional for you because you lost your home in the Palisades fire, but that's not necessarily how this story landed in your lap. How did this all come to be?
A reader sent me a little note and said, I've never seen any fire aid money. How do I apply for fire aid money? And I thought, well, you know, I've never thought about that. There's 12,000 people, basically 12,000 homes gone. Those people probably want to know where the money is. This will be an easy task to find out. So I contacted the Annenberg. They never responded.
And the Annenberg is
Foundation, because they are overseeing the wildfire funds, yes. So I emailed them several times, they never responded. I called them several times, they never responded. And finally, it was like almost 2 weeks later, a woman got back to me and she said, oh, I'm sorry for the delay. The person you need to speak to is Chris Wallace. He's the media spokesperson for wildfire funds. So I contacted Chris and I said, you know, victims want to know when they can get their money. Seems like a very simple question. He said, basically, they don't. All this money are going to nonprofits, and then nonprofits will take care of making sure the money's distributed. So I looked at initially they gave $50 million to about 120 nonprofits. And I looked at these nonprofits, and one of them said, we help mobile home parks. And there were 2 mobile home parks in the Palisades, all low income. And so I contacted the people there. They had never received any money. They had never heard of that. When you go through, I would urge everyone to just go to the nonprofits that are listed if you want a good laugh. I mean, one of the nonprofits cleans preschool bathrooms. Well, after the fire, who knows? Maybe there is a preschool bathroom that needs cleaning.
Yeah. In other words, a lot of these nonprofits are ancillary, if you will.
That's a nice way of saying it.
And you urge people, our viewers, they can go on the Fire Aid website. And yes, in terms of if you're Fire Aid, you can say, we have listed all the nonprofits. So they've given out $75 million so far, and you can see for yourself each nonprofit that has received money. The vetting process, though, that's an interesting angle to this story as well, because there's still another round of funding that will be given out. If you're a nonprofit, you would just have to fill out a simple, very simple questionnaire. 6 questions. So what do you make of the vetting process?
I think they're not helping the victims at all. Let's just say, and the other thing you should know, if you go on there, they don't say how much each individual nonprofit gets. So there are 2 nonprofits that are for the homeless people in the Palisades, Los Angeles in general, that they're getting money from LASA. So why are these nonprofits also getting money from Fire Aid? I don't know. They're homeless nonprofits. Of course, we're all homeless now, but
And to be clear, we have reached out to actually the Attorney General, Rob Bonta, to see if this is on his radar, because this is a whole lot of money, and you are well connected in your community, and you don't know anybody who has received fire aid money.
That's correct.
So what is your advice if you're a victim, and there are several who are probably watching tonight, who lost their home like yourself, where do you go from here?
Hopefully with people like you who are bringing it to the attention of America, really, because we have all these people I know in the Midwest where I'm from who said, we want to give money, where do we give it? How can we help the people? This fire aid money is not helping the people, it's helping nonprofits, many of them who have executives that are getting a 6-figure salary. The money is not going to the victims that you wanted the money to go to.
Yeah, you make a great point, because a lot of people, this was an international story, and a lot of people people who really couldn't afford to give money, they big
sent their
hearts.
$20,
right.
Yes.
And said, where's that money going, right?
Exactly.
All right, well, if you want to follow Sue's reporting, you can do so. Again, this is at circlingthenews.com. Sue Pasco, sorry that you lost your home. Hopefully you see some of this money and your neighbors do too. Thank you so much for being here tonight and shedding light on this.
Thank you.
If you're like me, you don't necessarily like to go to the doctor unless you absolutely have to. I know a lot of you out there don't go to the doctor at all. That's great. Some of you love to go to the doctor. That's great. We all have our preferences. Our medical needs are fulfilled. We live in a nation where, despite all of the challenges we have, we still have the best bad option when it comes to healthcare. But sometimes you know exactly what you need. You know, for example, if you need ivermectin, you know if you need antibiotics or UTI treatments or chronic meds or symptom relief medications. This is why we work with our fantastic partners over at Jace Medical. You can learn more about them and work with them by going to patriot.tv/meds. That's patriot.tv/meds. And you can pick up a whole bunch of things. They got tons of products now. And I know there's a lot of companies out there that offer similar products, but these guys have been doing it for a very long time. They are the OGs, so to speak, and they have been able to innovate and advance in ways that other companies simply can't. They get mimicked a lot, they get copied a lot, but you can't do better than what they have over at Jace Medical. Their Jace case, for example, has improved. It used to just be 5 antibiotics, and that's great. That was important. I've had 2 of them. But now they've added another 5 for symptom relief meds, vital symptom relief medications. Of course, the aforementioned ivermectin. They have kits for cruises if you're going on a cruise this summer. Man, so many different options they have. Go to patriot.tv/meds, patriot.tv/meds, and see how their telehealth system is able to work for you. They just send the meds to you via mail. It's awesome. And best of all, you don't have to go to the doctor. I keep saying it as a reminder, I guess, maybe to myself, possibly. No, I don't need to be reminded, but alerting everyone that I'm not letting the Epstein thing go. We have had movement, ever so slight movement. But for the most part, again, a lot of the people out there, the conservative show hosts, the alternative show hosts, alternative blogs, as an editor of news sites, I get to see a whole lot of the stuff that's happening on a whole bunch of other sites. And I'm not seeing a lot of talk about Jeffrey Epstein anymore. And to be fair, I did say I expected the story to die down with the first week. And the fact that it extended an extra week, that's great. But as I noted during the morning show today, this is really a question. Let me put this the right way. This is an issue with distraction. Like, we've now been given something, we being conservative and alternative media, we've been given a series of events that happened Thursday and Friday that we're able to redirect our efforts. Okay? Just as a quick recap, started off, of course, with the Wall Street Journal, the fake news article about Trump sending a card with hand-drawn boobs or whatever to Jeffrey Epstein in 2003. Allegedly, totally bogus story. But again, it fulfilled the need to where any discussion, whether you're searching for it online or looking for it on news channels or whatever, if you type in Trump Epstein, then it's about the birthday boob card. Okay, that's the key word, right? That's the new storyline that's attached between Trump and Epstein. Okay, mission 1 accomplished. Mission 2, let's go ahead and give them some fodder. Give the people like Rucker and whoever else. Let's give them a win. And guess what? We're gonna get rid of the we're going to release some of the testimony from the grand jury investigation into Jeffrey Epstein back in 2019 or whatever, as long as it's court approved and relevant and blah, blah, blah. Again, and we won't get anything out of that. I'll just tell you up front. But then number 3, the big one. Okay, so they gave us the distraction and the keyword change. Then they gave us the little itty bitty tiny sort of semi sliver of a win, consolation prize, I guess you can call it. And then they gave us the new sexy. DNI, Tulsi Gabbard drops bombshells. And I'm not trying to downplay it. It's good stuff. I'm glad that this is happening. And it is extremely important. And by all means, it should be covered. It should be expanded on. We should be doing some more research, doing some more investigations of our own to help out. With that said, now here we are, Monday, and nobody's talking about Epstein. Over the weekend, Congressman Tim Burchett, who's quickly becoming one of my favorites, he did at least talk about it to some extent. So let's just. This is the first interview I've ever seen Martha Raddatz do where I wasn't just revolted by her actions. She was okay. I mean, not good, but I mean, compared to standard Martha Raddatz, she was okay.
Now by GOP Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee, who has called for more transparency in the Epstein case. Good morning, Congressman. You've co-sponsored the bipartisan Epstein Files Transparency Act, which would force the House to vote on whether or not to release all government files on Epstein. What exactly do you think the government is withholding here?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, ma'am. I applaud the president and Attorney General Bondi for wanting to release the grand jury files. I believe that'll pretty much cover everything. But I would give everybody a caveat, or that's a big word, but a warning that just because somebody flew on a plane doesn't mean they're a dadgum pedophile. I have a lot of wealthy friends. I aspire to be wealthy, but I've taken a vow of poverty because my daughter rides horses. So, but I have a lot of wealthy friends, and they fly on people's planes, and their plane will be down, and they'll say, hey, we're going somewhere, and we got an extra seat. Do you want to go? And they don't even know the person on the plane. So, that's one of the things I worry about, too, because, President Trump admitted that he flew on his dadgum plane, and so I worry about some innocent people. I worry about there's over 1,000 people that this dirtbag apparently offended. And currently, I believe the devil's dealing with him. But I worry about some of those innocents' names being out on that, too, as well. Yes, ma'am.
So, Congressman, you think unsealing the grand jury records is enough for you now?
I think it's a start. I don't think we're ever going to get to the bottom of anything, all of it, ma'am. I mean, look at the Kennedy assassination. Do you actually believe Lee Harvey Oswald shot President Kennedy from the front and the back, and this magic bullet appears an hour later on a hospital gurney and in an emergency room? This town doesn't give up its secrets very easy, and I'd warn people too. Now we're getting a hold of this stuff. What happened the last 4 years under the Biden administration? Senator Dick Durbin blocked my Senator Marsha Blackburn, who valiantly fought to get those records out and acted pretty much like there wasn't anything, and the media backed him up on it. And now all of a sudden the media thinks they've got something, and it's leveled towards Trump. But my history with this issue goes back a long way. I spent 16 years in the Tennessee General Assembly, and I passed and attempted to pass some of the toughest laws in the country, some of the first ICAC fund, Internet Crimes Against Children. I promoted the death penalty, chemical castration of child molesters. A lot of those bills were ruled unconstitutional.
Congressman, yes, I want to go back again. So you no longer believe or are demanding that all the Epstein files be released?
No, ma'am. I want them released, but my warning is this. Let's make sure that we're not releasing the names of some of these who were then children, now adults, that were abused by this dirtbag Epstein. And let's make sure we don't release things that have innocents' names on them. That's been my concern with the original. I thought they were dragging their feet in the beginning under the Biden administration. They never did anything, and now all of a sudden it's become a political issue. It's not a political issue with me, ma'am. I've held the hands of people that have been molested, and they carry a life sentence.
You've been very critical. I'm sorry. You have been very critical of Pam Bondi during this, and the president said he thinks she's handled it well. So where is the disconnect there? And do you think she should resign?
I think her communication with us early on was not as good. I mean, the binder, for instance, that she put out, I was very excited about that, but then I found the contents of it. I think it was her limited knowledge and her and taking advice from the wrong people, which you do a lot of in Washington. There's plenty of people to give you advice, but when it turns out not good, you turn around and they're nowhere to be found. And I think that's what she did in the beginning. I think if she turns the corner, I have a saying, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. If she finishes strong on this, then I'm all for it. I'm sure the learning curve is steep, and I think she blundered in the beginning. I really do, as most Americans do, because that white notebook that those young folks, those influencers, walked out with, I thought that was it. And then when I started digging into it, it was stuff that I like my postings on Twitter, or X, but that's about the limit of my computer knowledge. But even I could find those things on the internet that were already out there. So I think they blundered in the beginning, but I think they're going to finish strong. Again,
well, President Trump.
I don't know the. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. President Trump has started claiming this is all a hoax, that it's being perpetrated by the Democrats. He says some of his own supporters, who he labeled stupid and foolish Republicans. You are obviously one of those people who wants this released. What's your reaction to how President Trump has handled it?
It's his strategy. Everybody questions President Trump's strategy. They said the big, beautiful bill wasn't going to get out on the 4th of July. Trump comes out and says, I don't care when you put it out. I said, I don't care if you put it out on July 40th, get the bill out. I just want it out. And what happened? Dadgum, we passed it on the 4th of July. His cryptocurrency bill, my own Senator Haggerty, had the Genius Act part of that. Then everybody said it was dead. It wasn't going anywhere. And there I am on a phone call. I'm in a meeting with our speaker and our whip, Tom Emmert, and 10 or 12 fellow conservatives that had concerns about it. And lo and behold, President Trump calls, answers all of our questions, and the bill passes, and he signed it on Friday. So, I think to underestimate Donald J. Trump is a mistake in this town, and I think we're learning that. And I that's his strategy. Was I a little ticked off he said that stuff? Sure I was, but I'm a big boy, ma'am. We're playing in the big leagues right now, and I get criticized every day. I get death threats on a pretty regular basis, so my skin's about that thick right now. I think I can take a little criticism.
It sounds like you can.
He's coming out with it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks so much for joining us this morning, Congressman.
Thank you.
It sounds like he might be getting a little soft, but just a little bit. Look, Tim Burchett, I do believe that he is one of the good guys. Okay, I mean, and by good guys, nowadays there's only two criteria to be a quote-unquote good guy in Congress or in the Senate. That is, number one, you can't be a rhino or a Democrat. You have to be a full-blown American-loving, patriotic, conservative Republican lawmaker, okay? Or even libertarian lawmaker. Just don't be a rhino, and definitely don't be a Democrat. That's number one. Number two, don't be corrupted. And I'm not even going to go into it today about how many people have been disappointing because they do, whether they start off corrupted or not. Some of them do, a lot of them do. Others, they get corrupted once they get there. And that sucks. I think that Tim Burchett is one of the few so far. He does love America, and as far as we can tell, he has not been corrupted yet. Now, the problem is that the longer anybody stays on Capitol Hill, the more likely it is they will eventually be corrupted. Yeah, I used to really, really like and support Ted Cruz, and I think that in many ways he's been corrupted. I'm not making an accusation. I don't know that for sure. Okay, but just seems as if some of his policies have evolved over the years, and he seems to be protecting certain people in certain industries at certain times. You can say the same thing about Mike Lee. Okay, Tim Burchett seems to be one of the few that so far, it doesn't seem like he has been too corrupted, at least not to the point where it's making me dislike or distrust him. With that said, I would love for him or Anna Paulina